Welcome back, guys. If you are just joining us, this is INX Prime Live. Remember, we are on your screens every single Monday to Friday between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa actually announced late on Thursday night the decision by the party to invite all political parties to form a government of national unity after it failed to win an outright majority in the general elections. Now, we are going to just get a better understanding of this. Let's actually take a look.
A government of national unity is the most viable, the most effective and most powerful way of meeting the expectations of all South Africans at this particular moment. The ANC notes that we do have ideological and political differences with several parties in our political landscape. However, we will not preclude the possibility of working with any party so long as it is in the public interest and it is in keeping with the principles that they have articulated.
So, tonight we have to ask what kind of government will be constituted at both the national level and, of course, those three hung provinces that are obviously not in a majority. Now, to help us unpack this and other urgent questions, I am actually joined by Secretary General of the Public Service and Commercial Union of South Africa, Tahir Maepa. Tahir, assalamu alaikum, and thank you for joining us here at INX Prime Live.
Walaikum salam. Thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure having you. I just want to get into this conversation. Look, it's still a lot for us to process. We're so used to having a majority government, where all the decisions are made by one party. Everyone's still very, very confused as to how this actually works. In your understanding, maybe perhaps you can share with us what was actually proposed by the ANC last night.
Look, from what we could gather and from some of our friends within the NEC of the ANC is that there were a couple of options. In fact, the NEC was quite divided between the left as an alliance partnership to take the government forward, which is the MK and the EFF, or the liberals, which basically is going to be the DA and maybe IFP. So the issue of government of national unity is sort of a compromised positions because of these two factions. They stood firm in terms of their positions moving forward. So the president and the organization, the ANC itself, it was sitting between a rock and a hard place. However, the issue of government of national unity is not as simple or as easy as it's been made to be. The president spoke about that it is the most viable option. What is viable about government of national unity? You, for instance, with your age, you never experienced government of national unity in 1994. You don't know how it worked and the circumstances of it. You're pretty young. But I can tell you now that the situation of 1994, it was unique, it was different. There you had a liberation movement, people who had no experience about governance, none whatsoever. And they realized for them to just take over political power without the help of the nationalists, this thing is going to collapse overnight. So it was a strategic move, not a viable move, like the president is saying now. And the most important part about 1994, we had Madiba. We don't have Madiba. Cyril is not Madiba. He's not even close to Nelson Mandela. Yeah. So when you talk about viability, really speaking, it's something that is stranger than fiction, and it's not going to be appealing to a lot of South Africans. At the end of the day, South Africans have sent a message very clear that one, we are sick and tired of the ANC and their corruption and them running the country down. But secondly, they're saying, you oppositions, we also don't trust you to run this country. So it's checkmate. And this checkmate was created by the South Africans, not political parties.
No, without a doubt. And we are going to definitely chat about the comparison of 1994 to this, government of national unity. And we definitely want to speak a little bit more about that. But before we get onto that, I just want to cover some of the questions and comments that are coming in from social media. And I mean, Brian actually wants to know, he's a bit confused. How is it that the ANC, that didn't get a majority, why is the onus on them to go and create the structured government? Because, I mean, they don't have a majority, right? That's the question from Brian.
Well, it's a fallacy. The ANC, you must remember, is the ruling party currently until in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
And they still have that hangover of being the ruling party. But the reality is that they are not the ruling party. They didn't win any elections. However, we must also take cognizance of the fact that they have 40%. They are the largest bloc of all the losers. Everybody lost, but they are the largest bloc. Now, it is only sensible that they will want to take initiative. Why? Because they want to retain some power in one way or the other. And they basically are saying that, you know what, this is a preemptive strike. Let us be the ones who initiate this thing so that we can negotiate a better deal for ourselves, and the rest of the other things we can then give them to the rest of these other parties.
So I'm glad that we're having these conversations, because it's important to be able to hold various different parties accountable, specifically the ANC. Just touching on some of the questions that are coming in, like I did mention, Brian had one, but we do have another question coming in from Greg, and Greg was saying, he's speaking more about proportional government, and that's exactly what South Africa is. So if we're looking at proportional government in South Africa, I mean, if we're talking about a government of national unity, I mean, I think there was something like 52 different political parties that, contested this election. Does that mean all 52 of them form part of this negotiation and conversation, or how does it actually work? I'm very confused myself, actually.
So as it stands now, look, nobody has a clear understanding how this thing is going to work. I don't think even the ANC knows how this thing is going to unravel. But from the look of things, the ANC is saying those that are in parliament, all of you, we want you to be part of this government of national unity. Now, the makeup of that government of national unity, how it's going to be like, and we can model it with what has happened in 1994, where the Madiba then said, I'll be the president, and then I'll have a deputy from my party, and I'll create another deputy president to take the largest party during that time, which was National Party, to also get the second deputy presidency. Now, if that is going to be the model, Ramaphosa is saying, I'll be the president, Paul will be the deputy, Steenhuisen will be another deputy. Because that is the only reference that we have in terms of how it's going to look like. Then we are going to then create or give ministerial positions and deputy ministers to the rest of the parties. The only problem that we're going to have with that is that then the cabinet will have to be bigger. Because how are you then going to have a situation where with the current ministries, it means that ANC will probably have one minister, the rest of the other ministries will go to, then the ANC will not be able to push their policies as they should. Sure. Even though the ministers and the deputy president, they serve at the behest of the president. But these people come with MK's 14%, EFF's 9%, DA's 21%, and they are going to want to assert themselves into the whole thing. And that's what's going to make this thing more difficult than the 1994 scenario.
Look, I think President Ramaphosa and his team at the ANC and all of his members have a very, very difficult time coming ahead of them. But I just want to touch on exactly what you're speaking about right now. And we spoke about the concept of all these parties coming together, and everyone has different ideologies, different concepts on how they want to model and run South Africa. I mean, ideally, once the president spoke last night, we saw political parties come out either in support or completely rejecting it. One of those was the EFF and Julius Malema coming out and outright saying, it's a full rejection on his side. Do you think other parties will be willing to cooperate in this?
Well, I know that the smaller parties met today, and they constitute only, all of them, they constitute about 12%. And they are as confused as everybody else. But they took a different approach. They decided to write to the Chief Justice, who's supposed to convene the 7th administration, to say, you know what, the President has announced on Thursday that he wants to constitute Government of National Unity. Please tell us what this thing is and how is it going to work. Now, they're not going to the proposer of the motion, which is the ANC. They're going to the Chief Justice to seek clarity. Now, that in itself, it tells you a story that they don't even trust that they will get an honest answer from the ANC. And they see the Chief Justice as somebody who can probably be the one who can put this thing together, because it has to have legal binding approach. Because if it's not, there's not going to be a legal binding approach, then this thing is going to collapse in 3 months from now. So that in itself, it tells you. Now, the EFF have rejected this on the basis that they don't want to share any of this with the DA. And what EFF wants, they are strategic in their approach. They know very well what they want. They want the Ministry of Finance, and we know why they want the Ministry of Finance, and most probably they want to be Deputy President. Now, if you're going to bring this whole gang into one room, chances are they will never get the Deputy President, and they will never get the Ministry of Home Affairs. They may get a Minister of Social Development or something like that. So they don't want that. And they realize that, you know what, this thing is going to be a slap in the face. If we allow this, it means that we are going to be out in the cold and we are not going to achieve our objective. But what is even worse, getting in and getting out, that in itself will be sending a wrong message to those who voted for you. And remember, EFF also lost some votes. So they are not coming in a very strong position as they should. In fact, I believe that the EFF will probably play a much better role if they just sit on opposition benches and allow the circus to continue on its own. But if ANC want this thing to work, all that they have to do is to go to the original scene, the scene that created UDM, PAC, EFF, and Mkhonto Wesizwe. All these parties emanate from the ANC. Truly speaking, they share the same. They've got egos now because of the previous fights that they had. But truly speaking, they represent the very same thing that the ANC. So they stand a better chance to get something going with these ones than to having to include the DA.
No, definitely. I mean, the ANC has a lot to think about over the next few days, without a doubt. But again, Tahir, thank you so much for joining us tonight here on INX Prime Live.
Thank you very much for having me.
Perfect, guys. That is actually the Secretary General of the Public Service and Commercial Union of South Africa, that is Tahir Maepa, just sharing with us the importance of making sure that this whole government of national unity actually makes sense for the most important people out there, and that's obviously you guys out there as everyday South Africans. Now, on that note, we are going to take a quick ad break. We'll come right back.